So maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about how you came about the story, and let's take it from there. Like, what made you wanted to
Sure.
tell her
The
story?
inspiration originally was an encounter I had with a homeless man who had broken into the place I live in, New York City here. And I came home one night to find him in my foyer. And I talked to him for a while. I tried to help him, and the police came and sort of escorted him out and promised that they would take him to a shelter. And he popped out of the police car and ran into the cold sort of February night when it was snowing and very cold. And then he reappeared about 3 months later and sat in front of this building for a week or so at night, during the daytime. Every time I went in or out, he was there, covered in urine, muttering, psychotic. And I started to call the police again to come and take him to a hospital, and they refused to and said that he wasn't hurting anyone. And I of course said, well, of course he's hurting himself, right? He's not eating and he's psychotic, clearly. And they said, well, there's a law here that it doesn't, he's not rising to the level of self-harm. He's just sitting there. And finally they said, look, this is a societal issue. It's not a law enforcement problem. And I thought, they're right. That is what this is. So we decided to focus on this, and we found an article that Rachel Aviv had written, who's a wonderful New York writer who works for the New Yorker as well, and lovely writer, beautiful writer. And she wrote this great article, and that became the beginning of the piece, why we sort of focused on this story. But it turned from more of a polemic, looking at the nature of civil liberties and the mentally ill. When do you institutionalize? When do you medicate against someone's will? To a more artistic and sort of intimate exploration of what happened to this person, what was going on inside of her head. So that's the direction that we wound up taking.
Well, it's definitely incredibly respectful to also her own eloquence and humanity, and it's just. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about how did you put together the materials, because there is a lot of archival footage, there is some interviews, and then there's this, is there archival footage from her family?
Yes, actually Kiko Deguchi maybe is here. No? Oh, there she is. Hey. Kiko, if you just want to stand up so you get some acknowledgement. Kiko Deguchi is really a brilliant, with a capital B, editor. She is a genius in terms of editing, brilliant. And she was a partner and was amazing on this film, just amazing with the vision she provided and guidance, and just, I think, did a fantastic job editing this.
It's wonderful put together.
So when we started out, we actually started out thinking that we would make a film using a lot of the footage that we had spent interviewing almost 20 of many of the leading psychiatrists in the country on the issue of under what circumstances should we as a society be able to forcibly treat mentally ill patients. And the more time that we spent with Joan, Linda's sister, and with Caitlin, and the more time we spent with the journals as well, we realized that we really wanted to tell the story of Linda from the first person. We had her words and we had her voice. And we wanted to make what we thought would be an experiential type of documentary. We wanted to tell the story of Linda from her voice. She was a very artistic person. She was an art history major. She was very visual. She loved art. She loved food. She loved nature. And she saw things very visually. And in the journal wrote very poetically. When she was lucid, many of those lucid passages in the journal are filled with, beautiful poetic references. And, but we wanted to tell the story from her perspective. We wanted you as a viewer to feel what it was like as Linda living in that farmhouse during those 4 months, during one of the coldest one of the coldest winters on record. What she heard while she sat in a room in the dark on her own as the wind came through the window. What it sounded like to hear cars drive by the front of the house when you have imprisoned yourself in your mind inside of this house. What the human condition was like, and that's what we wanted to tell. And we spent a significant amount of time with Kiko, who really helped us to really accentuate the notion of the treatment of the human condition. And she did just an absolutely fantastic job. But we also worked with Gerardo Puglia, the cinematographer, because the visuals in this film are critically important. We shot part of the film in 35, in Super 16 and in 16 for very specific reasons, and that became very important to the film. And the music itself was also critically important as well. And I think Moshe Knoll, one of the composers in the film, is
Moshe
here also.
Yeah, Moshe, why don't you wave or something? Indicate that you're there. So Moshe Knoll is one of the composers of the film, which we're grateful for.
The way that you conjure the space that she might have inhabit, you know, when she was there is just so extraordinary. And the length and the time passing. It's just extraordinary film. I mean,
Well, it's paced not like a normal doc. You know, we in the world we inhabit today, with access to imagery and the speed at which we recognize things and process information, that's not the world she was living in that building. She had no internet, she had no television, she had no iPhone, you know. So she was moving through life in a different kind of pace, which we tried to evoke, I think, in the way that we put this together and present it. So.
But it's also very painful because you're asking us to die with her in real time, and
Yes.
that's, you know, that's a very strong statement.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first saw it that I was thinking about Dancing in the Dark in a way, and the
Mhm.
last one's very different films completely.
Yes.
But you know, in a way, you're put in that position as well.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, actually. That's interesting. I mean, we took a lot from narrative, dramatic feature work, I think. We were inspired by different people that we've, you know, come across in films we appreciate and respect and whatnot. I think it's part of, because this is the first thing we've directed, so we sort of wanted to throw everything in it that we wanted to throw in it, you know. But we wanted you to feel something, you know. I mean, you're reading the last words of a woman who's dying, and dying very tragically, in essence stripped of her dignity in a way by the society in which she lives and we all live. So that we found to be not okay with us, you know. We sat on a panel recently with Barbara Koppel. We were talking about what inspires you to make a documentary. And she said she was inspired by love. That's her inspiration in making films. And when they asked me, I said, I think generally I'm inspired by rage. So things that we focus on make us upset. And this story made us very upset. And then as we got to know Linda through her words, we became more upset because she was this beautiful soul. And I just want her to be remembered. You know, I want people to know that this happened to this person who died as this nameless thing. You know, I mean, just in a building alone, hiding under a blanket, too afraid simply to just get up and leave. Right? All she had to do was go to the door and open it and walk out, but yet she couldn't.
It's very interesting also the way that her daughter comes across, still very angry.
Yes.
You know, after having understood what she went through, her mom. So I don't know, like, has she seen the film, her daughter?
So Joan Bishop is actually here, Linda's sister. Joan, are you here? Joan, do you want to come down?
Yes. When I first had contact with Todd and Jedd, and they described to me the vision that they had for this film, I immediately thought how proud I would be and how excited Linda would be about how they were telling her story. And they certainly did an incredible job of making her come to life. And she was a very fascinating and alive person. You were drawn to her, as one of her friends said in the film, and she was so stricken with this illness, and I didn't want it to be told in a way that was sensationalized or was in any way going to hurt her, but it didn't, and they told the story so incredibly beautifully, and they brought the issue so much to the forefront that I hope people will continue to talk about the issue and make some changes in our mental health system across the country as well.